thinking about a starting adventure, you of course have to look at your characters' backstories, if they have them. So my players' characters do, and so I'll quickly go over a little bit of them, and then we can start crafting this starting adventure. So, Kango is playing a gnome druid called Mima Jolina Phalor. Mima Jolina Phalor. I think that's how it's pronounced. And she is on an adventure with her brother called Talan Brittlewick Phalor, who also possesses magic, more magic than Mima, I believe, and even though Mima is level 3, so that would mean that he would be even higher level than that, but that's okay. And they were on an adventure together to the main island, so to Skyfallland, to both gain new magic through applying the magic that they have, and also to prove their magical prowess. Mima's brother, got arrested because he resembled a thief who tried to steal one of the councilor's jewels. And yes, I have decided that it's going to be a council and not a monarchy or anything like that ruling the island. The interesting thing about a council is accountability. If you've got a council deciding something, then not one individual is responsible, it's the entire thing. Plus, if anyone does something wrong in the council, or if anyone is maybe not as loyal as they claim to be, then the others would be incentivized to report that. And so you've got this system, because if it were a monarchy where you've got a king or a queen in charge and the king or queen is under the control of the dragon, then it's much easier for that individual to plot something against the dragon. Okay, so that's one of our characters. So one character's already on the island, and that's a good hook because now that character might be looking for help to rescue our brother from jail. Now, Emichu's character is an Aarakocra archer, and that archer is a homebrew class, which Emichu found. His name is Ka, and he is out to avenge a friend who was slain by an undetermined force. So whether that is a monster or bandits or whatever, Emichu has left that blank. In this quest for vengeance, Ka has come to this island. Willis's character is a half-elf cleric of the war domain called Brak Igan Marmal, who is on mission to do good in defense of freedom on behalf of Tritherion, the god of individuality, liberty, retribution, and self-defense. Yeah, because his parents were murdered for doing the same by a guy called Margraf Duraxon the Lesser. And now he's taken up the mantle of this god who, by the way, is the same god who allowed his being in the first place, because he's a half-elf. So in this world, the union of an elf and a human doesn't normally naturally produce a child. You have to have divine intervention for that. I think that fits quite well with Emichu's character's backstory, and this is purely by chance. My players don't know about each other's backstories. And then Mr. W is playing a half-elf wizard, a divination wizard, called Arkan, who, after finishing wizard school, was basically bullied into doing the bidding of a wealthy patron, who is offering to pay a substantial amount of money to further Arkan's magical research and development. And the current quest that he's given to Mr. W's character is to broker a gem trade deal for him with the Skyfall Isles. those are my characters, my players' characters. And so we've already gotten a potential connection between Willis's character and Emichu's character. Mr. W's character, I've got interesting ideas for, because I would like to tie the backstories of these characters into the Beholder, if possible, so that as the players follow their own threads, they all become intertwined and lead to this Beholder, which is going to be the main mystery. So my idea is that the Beholder, planning for all sorts of contingencies, would be aware how dangerous powerful mages could be to him. So he's got connections with high-up people at the wizard school, or wizard schools, they're not on this island, they're on the main continent of somewhere, who knows. But the Beholder's got connections with those, and these are these wealthy patrons who he pays to send promising young wizards over to the Skyfallland, so that the Beholder, through his minions, can evaluate their potential, or the potential danger, for one thing, because if there's a up-and-coming wizard who's just come out of the school, who's got all of these powers already, and so shows so much promise, and if he's a heroic character, then it might be wise for the Beholder to kill that guy before he becomes, before they become a threat. The other option is, if this is a wizard who's enamored enough by promises of gold and of power, then perhaps the Beholder could enlist these young wizards. That could be such a great way of incorporating Mr. W's backstory into the Beholder plot. So let's quickly write that down. Oh, and I also need to come up with a name for his wealthy patron. And I will have to also write down details about these NPCs so that I can easily reference them. Okay, I have written a short description here and a location. I've decided to call the location of where the wizard school is the Ambercliffs Coast, because I think that sounds quite evocative when you hear it. But also vague enough that I don't have to do a lot of world building around it now. We've got to think about how this would play out normally. So I've written, once these graduated pupils arrive on Skyfallland, they are collected by another one of Xinthar's minions, who then sends them on a dangerous quest to test their powers. Let's write down plot hooks, Arcan, Xinthar's test of power, Mima, whose plot hook is, of course, rescue her brother from jail. How am I going to... because I want those two to be tied together, but I don't know if I want that to be tied together like from the outset, so that we know already, oh, this is tied together, or if it's just similar and then they discover that it's actually tied together. The way I'm imagining it is that Ka and Arcan and Brak are all on a ship together and arrive at Skyfallland together. So Brak's hook is to help Ka avenge his friend. What exactly killed Ka's friend? I want this to be tied in with the Beholder as well. My first thought was to have Ka's friend be a wizard who also attended one of these wizard schools and was also brought over to this island and who died here. Killed in one of Xinthar's tests of power. And I think that that's probably a good hook, because then as the sessions unfold and they learn more and more clues, the threads are going to fall together. Okay, so there we go. Those are our plot hooks. I think that the first two things that would happen is, one, Mima would, of course, join the group and ask for help to save her brother from jail, which Brack would be quite happy to help with, I would assume, considering his backstory. And on a player level, I think that they would want the group to stick together and to actually become a group. And that's the first thing that would happen, of course, because we want Kango's character to also be part of the group. And the second thing is that Arkaan's contact, the one who's going to collect him, would do so. Okay, we've got to think ahead a couple of steps along which avenues the players are likely to pursue. So, if they choose to work towards rescuing Mima's brother first, how would they do that? Well, they've got to prove the innocence. So they've got to capture the real thief. Or they just launch a jailbreak. If they do try that, if they do try a jailbreak, they will likely not succeed. They might get quite far in if they roll really, really well, but if they do try it, they're likely going to get captured. And if they get captured, well, the people here, the council, want to find out what happened to the dragon. And so they don't want to send their own people up there because they know how dangerous the dragon is. And the Scale Guard, they wouldn't even tell them, even if they knew, which they don't. They want to hire a group of adventurers who are new to the areas, they have no idea how dangerous the Green Matriarch actually is, to go up there and to figure out what's up with the Green Matriarch and then report back. If they try to find out who the actual thief is, to capture the actual thief... here's an idea. So we could tie that into Mr. W's backstory as well. What if there's another graduated pupil wizard here who's got illusion magic, and one of Zinthar's trials was to steal the jewels of one of the counselors without getting caught. And so that's what his minions told this young wizard. And so he used his illusion magic to frame Mima's brother. And then that trail could lead onto, of course, Mr. W's backstory, and it could lead onto Ka's backstory as well. And so I think that that is going to be quite good. So I've written down the two paths I think that this plot hook could take. And this depends entirely on what the players want to do, of course. They might come up with a third option, and then I'll have to improvise, which will be fun. The next one is Arkaan's, which now we've got to think of what a test of power might be. Now, Zinthar is paranoid about what's going on with the Green Matriarch. So how about he uses that as an opportunity to test the young wizards who come to the island. I've written Phony Brother Story. Sorum Shellpainter, which is the name I've come up with for this co-conspirator, is Zinthar's minion, who is tasked with sending Arkaan to a test of power, which is to investigate the Green Matriarch. To lure Arkaan, he will claim that his missing brother, Pral, is a trade coordinator and would be willing to set up a meeting if Arkaan finds him. He was last on his way to have an audience with the Green Matriarch. I don't know how Emichu is going to play Ka, but I think that if the conversation with Sorum is going on, if the conversation is going on, they're going to want to find out about this place. So Card probably ask him if he's heard about his friend. But I'll write Sorum's little NPC description as well. And I will need to write down some stats for him, because they will likely do persuade checks or was it sense motive? Whatever the 5e equivalent is. So I will need to write down some stats for this guy. I suppose that we would have to come up with a specific reason for Kar's friend to come to this island, because that's something I will have to give MHU as well. And then that will dictate, or likely dictate, the line of inquiry that Kar will take. So I will quickly message MHU to see if they've got a name in mind. I've just written inquiry, blank, went to the Skyfall Isles to locate a powerful magic artifact to aid them in their magical development. Now, when they speak with Sorum, he will claim that his brother knows a lot of people, and he might be able to help with this investigation. So that's another way of pushing the party to go on this quest for Sorum to locate this phantom brother of his. I will write down a little bit about Sorum. I've just spent the last little while coming up with a little bit of a description for this character and also some stats. So, Sorum Shellpainter. He's one of Zintar's lower minions who follows the orders of the minions above him. His contact is Skral Metan, a dragonborn. He knows not of Zintar. Because, of course, Zintar wants to remain hidden, even from the majority of his minions, who he now trusts even less, now that the Green Matriarch is seemingly gone, inexplicably. So he's a halfling, because, of course, this character is supposed to be trustworthy, or appear trustworthy, and so making him a halfling, of course, associates him with the halflings that people will know from Lord of the Rings and how innocent they were and all that. I've made him a gem cutter by profession, so that that gives a little bit of a clue into the world here, with gems being such a big part of people's lives. He's a gem cutter, but actually he's a minion of Zintar, of course. He's from Shard's Calling. He knows the languages Common, Halfling, and Draconic, because living here with the Scale Guard, knowing Draconic would be quite common. Skills, I've given him +2 in Deception, because of course that makes sense. And then Profession. Now I know that Profession isn't really a skill in 5e, but in Pathfinder it is, where you can have different professions, like for example a farmer or a smith, blacksmith or whatever, and then you get a bonus if you roll those skills, anything that's got to do with that profession. So I've just used my power as the GM to give him a new skill called Profession, which is gem cutting, and giving him a +2 to that. He's got basic commoner stats. I have tweaked his ability scores a bit. I've given him +2 on Intelligence and Charisma. I haven't given him a description here, like a visual description. That's the sort of thing that I tend to do off the cuff. And then little details that I make up on the spot, I'll note down, usually. So now it's time, now that we've got a vague idea of where we want the story to go, plot-wise, it's time to think about how the session is likely going to go. So the ship arrives, these characters get off, and the first thing that'll likely happen is a brief description of the scene, and then Mima finding the group, and them talking, and then during that conversation, we'll have Sorum approach the party, recognizing Arkan, and he'll invite them for a drink at a tavern where they're gonna talk about stuff. The first thing we'll need to come up with is the tavern itself, like the name, the general aesthetic, probably also the name of the barman or the bartender, because that's something that the players will probably interact with. And we'll also need to come up with a name for the captain, well, for the ship that's bringing the players here, 3 of the players here, along with the name of the captain. So, in the description, of the Shard's Calling, I've now made a new entry called the Scaly Shine Tavern, which is at the bottom of the hill near the harbour. The servants are kobolds, who, in my setting, they don't have names because they identify each other by smell. So instead, they've just been given numbers. The owner and bartender of this establishment is a dragonborn whose scales are decorated with gem dust. She goes by the name of Zara. Now, the gem dust is another little bit of world building to hint of more depth being here, because there are so many gems everywhere, and this is now also a hint that gems are being worked here. They're being cut and broken apart and made into other things, and so this dragonborn has got shiny scales because of the gem dust, and that is what gives the tavern its name. And I have now just come up with a name for the ship, so that the players are going to arrive on, which is the Cord Maiden, as in a cord of rope, and it's going to be captained by the High Elf Erustra, just in case the players inquire about it. So what we've got so far is the players arrive on this ship, on the Cord Maiden, they meet Mima, then they meet Sorum, they talk about his plight. If they go along Sorum's plotline first, then they're going to go investigate the Green Matriarch, which is actually the trial for Arkan, but yeah, they don't know that yet. If they go along Mima's plotline first, then either they will have to try to find the real thief. If this comes up during the conversation with Sorum there, then he's probably going to also say that, oh yes, Pral has many connections, and he might be able to help out there, but just please find him. And so that's a way of bringing the party back onto that line as well, that line of inquiry. And I think that that's probably enough for the first adventure, considering we've got character introductions and we've only got 2 hours, we've got chattery, we've got all that sort of stuff, that's probably enough. I will likely come up with a little tiny bit of what could happen on the way there. Probably on the way to... Because if we look at the map, we've got Vale Rift for them to get to, and they're probably, because this is about a day's travel there, because, yeah, they're going to go to the dragon's lair. It's about a day's travel to Vale Rift, so they're going to need to stay there overnight, and then they're going to probably have encounters with these uncertainty monsters and these magical effects and that sort of stuff. I haven't world built that yet. I'll world build that a little bit just in case the players are faster than I expect, which they might be. I'm going to world build just enough so that I can come up with things on the fly, should I need to. I was thinking about the town of Shard's Calling, the Radiant City, and a few things that maybe need to be added still. Well, not need to be. These are things that I could come up with on the fly if need be, but it's good to plan out these ideas a little bit if you have the time, which I barely have, but that's okay. I've put in a little bit of a list, so a list of magic items for the shop, the Dragon Eye. I was thinking that perhaps they could have a reputation system, so that they only offer magic items for sale that are appropriate with how much the shop, aka the Green Matriarch, trusts these specific individuals. Let's have a quick look through the list of magic items from... I'm not sure if it's from the Dungeon Master's Guide or if it's from the Player's Handbook. I know that Pathfinder had a list of magic items. I'm not sure if this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide or if it's in the Player's Handbook, maybe? I finally found the magic items section of the DMG, and this is of course blurred for copyright reasons, but one thing I've noticed is it doesn't appear to give prices for these items, which I'm fine with. I mean, I'm confident that I can come up with good prices for these items myself. However, it is maybe a little bit confusing for new players, I would have thought. For new GMs, if they see these long tables of items like spell scrolls, bags of holding, or all of these different things, Goggles of Night, Helm of Comprehending Languages, Immovable Rod, but it doesn't tell you how expensive these would be if they were to, either if the players were to sell them or if someone wanted to buy them. Because I know in Pathfinder, the magic items lists do have prices associated with them. And so that's an interesting change, especially since D&D is 5th edition is supposed to be more beginner friendly. So I would say the first item is probably a few potions of healing. So let's just say, well, we're going to have 4 players. So let's just say that there are going to be 4 potions here. I'm not sure if this is the standard for 5th edition, but that seems fair. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do 1d8 plus 2. So then you can get a maximum of 10 hit points back and a minimum of 3 hit points back, which is a little bit more beginner friendly, but then again, this isn't supposed to be a tough campaign or anything like that. Let's say 50 gold pieces each. Or maybe, I don't know, because the economy in D&D 5th edition seems to be a little bit different than in Pathfinder. In Pathfinder, I find money is traditionally worth more than it is in 5th edition. That's inflation for you. Okay, 50 gold pieces as a base price, considering that the players aren't trusted people yet. And maybe someone can make a persuasion check or something to lower that price down a bit. Or maybe if they buy multiple things, they might get things a little bit cheaper. So the next item, spell scrolls. Spell scrolls are useful. Immovable rods are of course great fun, but I think it's a bit too early to introduce an item like that into the game. And we don't have to use these items here. I can of course come up with my own stuff, and I usually do that, but I just wanted to see what 5th edition had to offer if you just buy the DMG. Potion of Gaseous Form. That could be really interesting, especially if they go try rescue Mima's... Mima? Is it Mima? Hold on, I don't want to mispronounce the name. Mima, yes, especially if they want to spring Mima's brother's character... No, if they want to spring Mima's brother from jail, a Potion of Gaseous Form could be really valuable, because if they manage to smuggle that potion into him, he can just turn to gas, and then float outside somewhere, and then re-materialize. So, sure. So I'll have to look I'll look up the specifics of how these items work between now and when I run the session. How about 200 gold pieces? I mean, it's a very specialist item. Magic items aren't cheap. Sending stones. I talked about these in my D&D film review, the Honor Among Thieves. You can't do as much harm with these as with a Potion of Gaseous Form. So how about I reduce that price down to maybe 160 gold pieces. Broom of Flying? Nah. Because we've got a player playing an Aarakocra, and so that's their special ability, that they can fly and they can reach these places, how to get to places. If we introduce a Broom of Flying, then that's making that ability less special, and so I don't want to do that. What's a Bag of Tricks? Bag of Tricks. So it's basically you can summon a creature to fight for you, or to do things for you. I mean, that sounds really fun, except what are the creature's statistics? Alright, so in D&D Beyond, if you click on it, it gives you the... Okay, that's useful. I will write one of these down, and then because I'm doing this virtually, I can actually turn these into hyperlinks. So if I click on the text, I can send myself to the SRD or D&D Beyond page or whatever for these descriptions. I think a grey Bag of Tricks sounds nice. How about 300 gold pieces? Actually, how many times per day can you do this? Once 3 fuzzy objects have been pulled from the bag can't be used until the next dawn. Okay, so it's 3. 3 creatures. Okay, that's really useful. Yeah, 300 gold pieces seems, I think, reasonable. I think a spell scroll would be useful. But how does one do this? How does one make... Because I know that there is, well, at least in Pathfinder, there was a way of calculating how expensive a spell scroll is, depending on what spell is loaded in it and the level of the one who made it. Oh, interesting. Any creature that can understand a written language can read the arcane script on a scroll and attempt to activate it. Interesting. Anyway, let me just quickly have a look to see if I can find how these items are made, and then I'll get back to you. After doing a bit of research, I did find a section in the DMG about creating magic items, but I didn't find that very useful. Not nearly as useful as the things in Pathfinder. So I did a bit of research online, and here someone has said, has posted a section from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, adding optional rules for creating spell scrolls. And this says that a level 1 spell scroll, this is for players I think, costs 25 gold pieces worth of ingredients or things you need to make it, materials. Takes a day to make. Assuming you have proficiency with things you need. But a Cure Light Wounds spell scroll would then be but half as expensive as the potion that I've made. But I think I don't want to get too much into this. This can be something that, I mean, this doesn't have too big of an influence right now. Maybe if this were a long campaign, then the prices of things over time could shift the balance of the game one way or another. But this is just one shop having a few items for sale. So I think that I'm just gonna eyeball it, basically. There doesn't appear to be any concrete rules for this in the base game. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm going to go to the PHB, and I'm going to look through some spells to see what might be interesting. Now I will note this is also potentially a spell that that the wizard, so Mr. W's character, may be able to copy into his spellbook if it's an appropriate level, so level 1 or level 2. So this is a spell that I'm potentially giving my party pretty much permanently. So if that is what Mr. W decides to do, so I'm going to go down to the wizard spell list. Ooh, I was thinking about invisibility might be fun, but I doubt that they would want to sell a scroll of invisibility to people who've just turned up. So let's not have that in there. How does mage armor specifically work in 5th edition? Because I know how it works in Pathfinder, where it gives you a +4 bonus to your AC. But here, okay, so, right, so the target's AC becomes 13 plus its Dex modifier, so it just sets it to that AC. Yeah, I remember now. And this only works on a creature who isn't wearing armor. But I think this is reasonable, I would say. Scroll of Mage Armor. And I will link this with a hyperlink in there as well. Actually, yeah, let's do... Tell you what, I've thought about it, and I'm going to reduce the price of the healing potions to 45 gold pieces each. And then the Scroll of Mage Armor, I'm going to do 50 GP. Okay, so let's come up with something unique for this last item. So, how about a tankard that slowly drains the liquid inside, or that you can activate and it drains the liquid inside, so that if there's stuff inside, you can look like you're drinking from it, but you activate it somehow, and it just the liquid inside vanishes. That seems fun. Not too useful in most situations, but maybe if you apply it cleverly, it could be useful. Maybe if you want to get someone else drunk, it's like you can have a drinking game that you can always win at. So, tankard of emptying. So, tankard of emptying. And I think, I mean, this one would have, of course, taken a lot of time to make, but it's not as useful as a potion of healing. So how about 35 gold pieces for that? Well, no, let's do 30 gold pieces for that. The next important thing, well, actually, we need to have at least, we need to have the names and responsibilities of the different councillors, because the players might go to this to the council house or whatever it is, which we also need to come up with, to do whatever they want to do. So it's a good idea to at least have something prepared there. I think it should be a palace, of course, with wooden roofs, and it should have a name, like, how about the House of Harmony? Yeah, that's a good name for the people, where the people who rule are at. So I've put House of Harmony is a place occupied by the ruling council, and then I'll just come up with a few names of these councils. Well, I'll come up with the areas they're responsible for first, and then I'll come up with names associated with them, just so that if the players do want to talk with someone there, I can reference this. I don't have to come up with it on the spot. So I'll be with you shortly. After spending a bit of time thinking about this, I've come up with the following councillors. Now, these are all under the rule of the dragon, or they were when the Green Matriarch was still around. So the councillor for trade is Councillor Jarzen. He's a human. And the councillor of justice is Kislath, the dragonborn, because, of course, lizards, reptiles, sees, at least in my world, see things more analytically, with less mammalian emotions usually. So yeah, for someone for justice, Kislath, the female dragonborn. For tax, the council of tax is Gmarim, who's a male goblin, of course, a goblin being in charge of your taxes, of course. Construction, so the council of construction is a male high elf called Hinal, or Hinhal. And then the council for military is Sishatha, who is a female lizard folk, because of course the military is under the control of a lizard folk who is basically deifying the dragon. So, yeah. The Councillor of Faith is Mirgani, who is a halfling, female halfling. The Councillor of Agriculture is Framson, who's a male human. And then the Councillor of Industry is a female dwarf by the name of Rambrake. And for Diplomacy, Councillor for Diplomacy is Annabelle. And I thought, why not make her a succubus? Somehow the dragon got in contact with I think it's technically a fiend, and found a succubus and put her in charge of diplomacy. Because of course with the charm magics that they have, that is beneficial in many regards. So now that that's come up with, those are things that can be name dropped. I've had an idea for a bathhouse a little while ago, where they've got these golems made of soap, that they have a gem, like they've got very bland features. They don't have a face, they don't have fingers, it's like they're made of clay, only it's soap. And they've got a gem in there where the face would be, through which they are controlled. And I think that that's an interesting bit of thing for the players to pass. It's like, because as you're heading up the the winding street, you can see on the left there's a fancy looking entrance with a fence around it, and it says whatever bathhouse there, and there might be a good place to meet certain people if they want to meet one of these councillors. Maybe they wait around until he or she goes to the bathhouse, and that's when they talk or kidnap them. Who knows? I have no idea what my players will do. So let's quickly come up with this. I've decided to call it the Wise Pearl Bathhouse. It's near the top of the hill, and it features massages, relaxation gardens, and soap golems. So a simple bath will cost 1 silver piece, a deluxe bath a gold piece, so that's 10 times the amount. Massage 5 silver pieces, gear cleaning 2 silver pieces, and a meditation session 1 gold piece per hour. And that is going to be with bards playing music and with prestidigitation or something like that to create certain scents in the air, or incense if you actually want that. Actually, yeah, why not? Let's make these also sell incense. So incense, we'll do 1 silver piece per stick, I guess. Yeah, so you can actually buy incense here if you want to as well. So I just now need to come up with the name of whoever is at the desk and the name of one of the masseurs, is that the right word? And one of the bards. So 3 names, because those are the people they might interact with. So we've got a high elf male at the desk. He's by the name of Genial. And then the masseuse by the name of Bethany, so human female. And then a meditation bard by the name of Vinlan, who's a high elf. Now the other things that I've written down here is... Okay, I might not have time to write this down before the session tomorrow, because I'm going to be out for most of the day tomorrow, and I'm about to go in about half an hour. Not for the same thing as tomorrow, a different thing. Anyway, so I've got written down the Council Dragon Inquisition as an idea, which is that maybe once a month or something, each of the councillors go into these almost like metal cages in this open field by the palace, and then the Green Matriarch would come and essentially audit them, basically. If one of them has been found to have betrayed the dragon, then they would not be able to run away because they're in a cage. Or at least maybe it would be too slow for them to get out. Maybe it's an open top sort of thing where you have to climb down into or something, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want this yet or not. It's an idea that I might use or not. The second thing is a weather table. Usually I just use a D8, and if it's a high number, then it's intense weather, and if it's a lower number, then it's a more calm, clearer weather. Not sure if we really need that. Alright, the other thing was, I was thinking about the Scale Guard, and them being lizard folk, and I was thinking, what do they eat? How are they supported? And then I had the idea that maybe there are these rodent farmers who, instead of paying taxes as money, they can pay taxes in rodents, which are then the food for the Scale Guard. So I was thinking about maybe coming up with a specific farmstead or something, but that's something I kind of come up with on the fly. If the players leave town, I might introduce that or have them walk by it or something. Also then I have had an idea, which is when the players do, either when they get to the Green Matriarch's cave and find that she's no longer there, or when they get back or something, maybe there is another dragon on the tropical island who's been envious or jealous of the Green Matriarch, and who is very cautiously now sending his or her own minions or followers or worshippers to figure out what's going on. But that's something that that's in the far distance. I might drop little open hints, which are little clues that I can later then pick up on and link to a thing that they actually hint at, even if I haven't come up with a thing yet. Or not. It might just be some random thing someone says and it doesn't actually have deeper meaning at all. But yeah, I now feel pretty well prepared for tomorrow's session. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll see you then. If you want to watch the full playlist, it'll be linked below. So until then, bye-bye.